Baguette 2022 another 1,000 points. Some mods to have King Jr.
What is going on, Danny?
11 of 16 last year, now 18 of 20. Important. And then 5 queens, BTR 5, and 2030. We also have Jionding 2030. Soju is the goat, because what rhymes with goat? Soju. Baguette is here, it's nice.
Counter-Strike 1,000 points, great chess, here we are, BBB 1,000 points. We also have Jionding 2030. We have the goat 2030 queens, BTR 5 BTR.
Is it? Because every win counts.
Good job. But you need vacation before this summer because, frankly, I'm not sure that I understand everything. I think let's sit down and give me a proper explanation because I'm confused right now. And do it in French as well because.
Hello everyone, really happy and pleased to introduce this first format. Right now we have at the table with me Nicolas Morer, co-founder of Team Vitality.
Whereas on the other side,
Exactly, look at the fancy outfits, the mastermind behind our EWC/expansion campaign, Danny, happy to share a moment with you to discuss what will probably drive our interest, our full audience and community during the whole summer EWC.
In Paris.
In Paris.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, it's insane. You know, like we did a content just before saying that, you know, like Paris is probably one of the biggest cities, country in the world that's leading esports in general. And I think it's like, welcoming our EWC right now in Paris, it's probably like this kind of marker that proves that France is on the map, but also it means that there is extra pressure on us because we become the local hero.
I thought you would say the favorite.
Favorite. I mean, I wish, but maybe Danny, you can first introduce what EWC is all about and maybe like the ranking point to say that maybe we are not the favorite.
EWC, what it's all about. It's bringing the entire hive together, right? It's so amazing, not only for me to bring a lot of international players to Vitality, but then to see them all in action. Last year we already had a few fans coming to Riyadh, which was amazing, but now seeing all the fans coming to Paris will be amazing for all the players as well. Obviously, I know EWC inside out, but I heard, Nico, you wanted to explain how the ranking itself works for all the people that haven't heard about it.
So EWC is one of the only relevant esports competition with a lot of different games. So 24 games, 25 tournaments, and it will crown and rank the biggest organization in the world based on the results on all the games. It's called the Club Championship. Why it's important for Vitality? For 2 reasons. The prestige of the competition. It's more and more one of the big moments of the esports year. Winning that trophy would be amazing. We know it will be hard. We go back to that. The prestige is big and the money is big too. So Club Championship rewards the club. If you finish top 1, $7 million for the winner, and then 5 million for the second, 4 million, 3 million, and so on. And the goal for Vitality, we have been fourth in 2024. We have been third 2025, and the goal is to at least be fourth. That's the minimum for the company. But we know together, secretly, but not so secretly, we wish for a podium. Maybe third would be very nice, second would be insane, and first we cannot really dream about that because we have a certain club that is really strong in that competition. And how does it work? You score points in every result. Top 1 is 1,000 points, and then I don't know the exact numbers for the rest. Danny, you will tell me.
Danny is a safety
Maybe
net.
750 for the second?
Yes,
I'm
750 for the second,
Okay.
and then every single game should have third place decider, where the third place gets 500.
Yeah, we know about first place
Fourth place,
decider
yeah,
at
we know very
EWC.
well, right?
Some
And we
of
know
our
that
fans remember.
Fourth place will only give us 300 points, as we know from last year. And then if it's a shared top 8 position, so if you're getting eliminated in the quarterfinal, then it's 200 points for all of these teams/players. But there are some games where I actually have a ranking of 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the point system is actually at 200, 150, 150, which obviously makes it very interesting in Battle Royale games, for example, where there's a huge difference between the 8th place and the 5th place, which is not the case in Counter-Strike or Valorant, for example.
Sure, and outside of top 8, 0 points. So the goal is to have obviously the best results in all of our teams that participate in the tournament, and that's the point of today. The goal is to look at every one of our teams and discuss our expectations, see if we're aligned, and then have a kind of a overall view on our chances in the event. Competition is 7 weeks from mid-July to end of August roughly. So guys, we expect you to come as we discussed, and we will look at which teams we have in every week in order. And we know the order is important because last year, you recall guys how it worked. Tough beginning and then a crazy sequence of events, great results, and then the bitter ending, let's say. But the way it's structured, and you will see that, is that a lot of our big chances are towards the end. So it will be a crazy summer. Let's start.
And there's also my chance to say, if you don't have tickets yet, we know, right?
Code VIT15.
There you go. There you go. 15% discount. You can get tickets for all the tournaments.
And please, if you manage to see Danny on Twitter spamming VIT15, avoid to report him, because otherwise he will be shadow banned.
Yes.
And we cannot sell tickets because we are number one in terms of sales, just because this crazy man spams the entire world. Even he went under CEO's Twitter.
And your president as well.
And President Macron.
So Macron is tweeting and you answer VIT15?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's nice. And yeah, so we are number one in ticket sales, and apparently certain French clubs are a bit jealous and they want to catch up. So guys, we spam the VIT15 and we remain number one.
So I think there is an interactive game as well. So if you are watching this video and wants to do the content with us, every time that we'll mention the name of the games, put your prediction on paper based on your gut feelings.
Paper? Oh,
that's
we have
all.
an old audience. I like that.
On a notepad on your Windows, I don't know. And then maybe just do the exercise with us and we can compare.
Is there something to win for the best prediction?
But I mean, you can probably replace
Eternal
Danny. You can
recognition.
replace
Replace
Danny next year if you do better.
And the shirt is a gift?
Look. If anyone predicts literally all the points, I will gift him my jersey, my shirt. It's not a jersey, but shirt.
Everyone
There you
will
go.
sign it.
So the stakes
We can make that happen.
Yeah, every
happen.
A
player.
signed shirt. Oh,
Exactly.
wow.
But we need to see the screenshots before the tournament happens, obviously.
I mean,
Guys, you
of
know
course.
what you have to do.
So you have to do it before the competition, of course.
We start first week
Yes.
with Valo.
Valo.
Valorant.
Let's say that in Valorant, thanks to EWC and Danny, we managed to secure a good player's name, Chronicle. It was some extra, let's say, buffer in our budget to allow the signing. And definitely, for me, they just achieved top 4 at Master London. And I think it's probably realistic to say that if we match this kind of performance, top 4 is a really good result. Because I think first, it's the best result of all time in Vitality. It lets some space to overperform, let's say, but I think top 4, in my opinion, if we manage to get out of the group of death, shitty group, obviously, it will be probably realistic, and this is what I'm aiming personally.
I agree with the top 4. I think they would be totally on track with what we expect. I'm worried about the group stage as well. It's a pretty tough group, but you never know. And as you guys said, we have the home turf advantage, so fans showing up will probably be important. Whereas we have to note that the group stage will actually already be played the week before EWC officially starts. So there's a world where we may already be eliminated by the time EWC starts, or we get 200 points already by finishing in the quarterfinals or by reaching quarterfinals before EWC officially starts.
Last thing to note maybe on Valo is the big competitor for Esports World Cup. So we could have mentioned them earlier, but Falcons obviously, number one favorite. Team Liquid. We know Liquid has qualified less teams, but they still have games where they are big favorite. All Gamers, for example. So those guys are not really edgy maybe, but mostly not relevant or not qualified in Valo. So maybe it's a way to have a head start.
That's a very good point as well, correct. I also think Valorant will be fairly crucial for G2. If G2 wants to have any say in the club championship, they need to show up in Valorant. Otherwise, they're not having enough teams to really challenge us in that way. So the first tournament of Valorant also super important for G2 already as well.
So it will set the tone for the EWC campaign.
Absolutely.
And then same week we have Fatal Fury.
Fatal Fury, konnichiwa.
I'm a big expert on Fatal Fury.
Yeah, I think we would be happy with top 8. Remember that last year we tried Fatal Fury, didn't even qualify. So now we qualified, we actually have a chance to score points. If we score points, I think that's a success for us. I want to win. I think we have the players that can actually pull it off. We saw Fenrich winning DreamHack in Atlanta. I mean, we acquired him for a reason. After he was with his old club for like 10 years, he gave us all the trust to join Vitality, which is such a big move for him. But it will be a very interesting tournament. I think for Falcons, super important too, because they obviously bought out Shanghai, the biggest star that there is in fighting games for EWC.
So it's the Swiss knife by any means. This guy
He
scored
bring 1,700 last year.
last year.
1750, correct,
170.
from Street Fighter, winning Street Fighter, and second place in Fighter Fury.
One
So,
player is already
More points than most of
most
the
of the
teams.
teams. Yes, that's insane.
so looking forward to going up against him in particular, but there are definitely other names that are showing up quite big. Goichi being another one that is the title defender as well. But I mean, we have 2 players qualified. H-Dope looks strong as well. Europeans, obviously a minor region, don't quite know what to expect, but knowing that we have these players, I think top 8 is a
So
fair
top 8 is conservative.
Let's call it realistic.
If we're top 8, we're fine, but there is room for a magic run. So we go to week 2. So for week 2, we start with the crazy story of last year, which is Free Fire.
Yes, where we could have won another 1,000 points. Nice.
At the same time, we had small expectation, and at the end, we were believing we could win it. You recall? It was so close, but it was very nice. I discovered this game, what it looks like. It's fun to.
I think a lot of fans did, right? And we had fans on site, and I saw so many tears, and even I went back to the player lounge afterwards. I was like emotionally done. This final was crazy. I can only recommend anyone to watch Free Fire final in particular, because I expect the same is going to happen again. There's like Wild West right now. We just last weekend won a different tournament in Free Fire and Invitational, but then the qualification run kind of looked a bit shaky. All Gamers looks very strong in Free Fire as well. You have Falcons, you have Twisted Minds, you have so many good names in there. Super important game for the club championship, even though the Western world doesn't really think about this game, but for us it could be a very interesting one. Predictions. Good question, right? Like, where do we want to stand at the end of the day?
Maybe
But
a
we
little
were-
bit less strong than last year on paper.
I think we are actually stronger, but I would say, so from my
based
point of
on
view,
expectation or result, it depends. Okay.
correct, based on last year's results, that's what I wanted to say. I don't want to put the same pressure on them, expecting, hey, we get another 3rd place or get close to winning. I think the game is a bit too random for that. However, team looks strong. Shout out to our coach, Chris. He's doing a fantastic job putting us in this place. Similar to Fate Fury. Let's be happy with points.
It's top 8 and an encouragement by Danny.
I like that.
Then we go to a game that we love.
Second week, MLBB Women, our queens, our beloved flagship team that, I mean, they're amazing. And this year they look really in shape already, like winning Indonesia really convincingly versus Falcons in finals, 3-1.
Yeah, because there's the question for a team that's so dominant. When does it stop? When do you see starts of crumble or things that start to not go as good as it used to be? And it's really important for that kind of teams to continue the cycle and keep the performance.
It's such a cool thing that we also have not only the team coming to Paris, but actually, like MLBB women are so well respected in the entire ecosystem, and it's probably the most advanced women esports that I've seen all across esports. And I think that's definitely something, hopefully the Western world see even more now that it will happen in Paris. And I definitely hope that we have full arenas for the grand final, at least on even the group stages.
I know that our fans, when they have to tick days, on being at the arena and the audience to watch them, I think they prioritize a lot this week just because they want to see the girls doing well and to show that everyone supports them, because I think it's a massive success and one of the best story that we ever had in Vitality, and especially in this EWC content. So really happy to welcome against those athletes in Paris, in our hometown, and hopefully with 1,000 points.
Yeah, goal is 1,000.
That should be the goal. I think it's the same for the team. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with them as well, and I echo your concern. At the beginning, I wasn't quite sure where we stand because they had it super exhausting last year. They went to national team events. It was pretty tough for them. We also have the reality that Cine and Vival are still studying, so they're still doing this quote-unquote on the side. I even had to get them out of university for them to start practicing, because otherwise they would have been stuck in university until June, So it's definitely a fight for them, but the goal is clear. First place, I think.
Let's go. Week 3, it's very dense one.
FIFA, EFC, sorry, we cannot say FIFA anymore. Danny last year said that FIFA will score 0 points.
Huh. You had a lot of trust in our guy Brice.
I put this on camera. It was actually funny because they asked me to name all the teams, and then I forgot about EFC, and they asked me, what are you expecting of EFC? I was like, well, it's 0 points anyways.
And
so I
boom,
apologize.
750
I
last
apologize. It was a crazy run.
It was crazy. It was insane.
And it was close, huh?
Yeah, the final was really nice. Huh?
So close so far, as we said. Huh? And it would have denied, by the way, Liquid.
Well, many things would have denied Liquid. That's not a topic. anyway, last year was
I mean,
probably
this year-
another performance, at least in terms of versus
is,
expectations.
I think, of course. It's funny because I said to Danny when we signed Breeze that I have the feeling that this guy will become world champion at some point. So, you know, like,
Bad prediction, then it was not last year.
it was not last year. I will go still with 0 points, and I think it's hard to say because I believe in both of them. I think they're really good. I'm just so fucking afraid of qualification. I think it's hard to qualify. But if they manage to qualify, I think like top 8 is definitely realistic and what should define their run. So if they qualify top 8, but qualification will be the key. So I will be a bit conservative and not score big here in EFC.
Nothing to add.
Well, I say 0 points because I know what happened last year. So,
That's very smart then. Yes. Yeah, but it's a good transition to PUBG because I think it's a bit of a similar situation where
I agree.
it's tough to break into top 8.
And it's another somewhat random game. It's probably not as random as Free Fire is, but it's clear that we are not necessarily the strongest team in our region to begin with because you have Navi, Twisted Minds, VP, the powerhouses of PUBG. So if you only think about those and then add on some Brazilian teams, international teams, Chinese teams, I think already getting into top 8 will be a fight. I think the boys can do it, but it should not be our expectation that they are guaranteed to get top 8 in particular. So I think PUBG, a safe bet, would also say 0 points, but I want to see them put on a good fight because I think Levante in particular, that guy is crazy inside and outside of the game. This is definitely an up-and-comer, a PUBG name that many will definitely remember for years because he definitely has the skills. But yeah, it's the first year where they play TPP through third person view as well. It's all a bit different now in PUBG, so maybe that helps us a little bit to fluke in this particular game.
Let's see. But let's say prediction would be 0. And we go to TFT, where we want to do...
It's the biggest question.
It was a bit frustrating last year. Huh?
Last year we were not super lucky in terms of drawings. You know, like we have like a tough bracket and ultimately we lost
T1 and
versus-
Weibo, and Weibo ended up winning the entire thing.
I don't know, because those guys are fucking crazy. You know, I love them. I mean, they're content machine for sure. They have a strong personality.
Soldier's the goat.
But I mean,
He's winning. He's finally winning. He's
that's-
never won in his life before.
That's
Don't
insane.
get me wrong, but he's winning.
But this sets belongs to him, no?
I hope so. And that's the one big change that we see. Last two EWC happened immediately after the new set was dropped. So there was a lot of flaws in the meta. You didn't quite know what to play. There were some broken heroes that you then simply, if you hit them, you win the game. We now, this year, play on the current set, that Sojo seems to be one of the best players in the world, and also the entire team has always praised him to be a clear 4 versus 4 player. Like, the MVP on the team has always been Sojo, how well he has been communicating, carrying the team. Obviously, he has a great lineup around him, Setsuko, Milk, Prestivant. There's no better team in America, but we're still concerned that he not show up. Maybe that's an American TFT thing, and I hope it's not the case. I hope they can raise the flag high because they have qualified now 3 times in a row as the number 1 seed for America.
The points, but how many points?
They don't care about the pressure. They want to win themselves as well, and I hope they thrive.
Can we believe in a top 4?
Is it bracket related, the top 4?
We don't know the group yet. It will definitely depend on that a little bit, but it's also so hard to predict the strength of the other teams. So that's really giving me a hard time to do any other prediction than top 4.
But probably Chinese are the best.
That's what I expect as well. I think from a club championship perspective, TFT is actually very interesting because All Gamers has one of the best Chinese teams as well. We see ourselves fighting especially against All Gamers and Team Liquid in the club championship. So TFT could actually be a huge swing because if AG doesn't get points and we get huge points in TFT...
So we're top 4. That's my prediction.
Okay, I go with top 4 as well.
MLBB.
That's the year, guys. Actually, like that's the year. We should override those guys. I think
Okay,
we didn't
let's
break
go.
the curse of MOBA, and you know, like I was a bit reassured saying, okay,
Not
Big
exactly a
Electronics-
MOBA.
No, but the curse lives with Vitality LEC and it lives for Bigetron MLBB. I was like, okay, it's maybe cosmic, like mystic, something that cannot be explained. And ultimately, they managed to win.
Possible to win.
And it was what a win.
It was an insane win.
Of the biggest viewership, insane.
Yeah.
Of course, it's possible, and I guess, and that's a question for you, Danny. Like, is Indonesia the major region? Is it the apex predator of MLBB, same as Chinese in HOK?
Unfortunately not, but let's say this year is the year, and Mirko in particular MLBB viewers will understand, he will back me up here. This year's the year where Indonesia wins a global trophy because they haven't done so in such a long time. Philippines has been winning, Malaysia has been winning, Indonesia is still missing that beat to get finally the trophy that they deserve. And who if not Bigatron, or now in our case Vitality, because they will play under the Vitality flag for us. I mean, if they end up winning and breaking the curse to win MPL Indonesia, let's
Why
make
not?
it happen on a global stage as well. Let's go all the way. I don't want to add up another 1,000 points here and there, but
Let's go all the way. It's written top 8.
No, but okay. It's top 8, it's a good baseline, but we believe secretly in the crazy run.
and let's reset why, because MLBB, Southeast Asia is the strongest region. So if you're coming from Indonesia, Philippines, or Malaysia, you are kind of expected to get quarterfinal, right? It would be a failure to not get quarterfinal. So the 200 points is the minimum expectation we should have. Anything beyond, that's the dream where hopefully Indonesian fans will support us, entire Indonesia will support us for sure, and let's make that happen.
Okay. Warzone.
Warzone.
So Warzone, it's, I think on paper.
I have no clue, guys,
It's a
so I
true-
listen to you.
No, but I
It's a
mean,
true
I mean,
Warzone.
I will not pretend that I'm an expert because I think I'm really disconnected from the game. But when Danny assembled this team, it was really polished and shiny names. Unfortunately, didn't meet this expectation because, like, let's say, like the first half of the seasons was bad.
That's
Was
fair.
bad, and
That's fair.
then a change happened, a swap with Twisted Mind, and team dynamic totally changed. So what happened?
It's one of these things where you have players on paper that you think, okay, these work out, it all makes sense, but then it doesn't make sense. And it got clear after not qualifying in Birmingham, after not qualifying in Atlanta. And then, yes, if you would have been an expert in Warzone, we probably would be screaming at each other because that's what these guys do. If we see Falcons and Twisted Mind just shouting at each other. No, it was almost a forced move because we had to change something, and Twisted Minds felt like because they were always losing to Falcons, which is their arch enemy in Warzone, that they also needed to do some change. So the one thing led to the other, and I think we are definitely very happy with the trade. I'm not sure if Twisted will be completely happy with the trade and the outcome, but getting Smitty on board, the MVP of last year, champion of last year, the team feels amazing together, and I can't wait to have them here in Paris. But then they have to show up. You know, like Warzone will be quite a Warzone. The match point system, super exciting. It was one of the most entertaining tournaments to watch last year as well. And I think it will be the same, and it will be fun to go against Gentlemates in particular. Expectations, predictions, I need a top 5 to really make this team work, because if it's
So
not
we
top
said top
5, then the money invested into Warzone is also not worth it. Let's be real from a business perspective. We invest into all these teams, and the return of investment in some and most of these games is the points that they return, right? So top 5 is what we need in Warzone.
So PUBG Mobile, for context,
The billions battle royale that we have in the lineup.
that's
it's
insane.
crazy. Like,
The- so many battle royales, but also what I learned when I visited Bigatron in Indonesia like a year ago with you is Vitality started with Call of Duty. So our DNA used to be FPS / Call of Duty, and Bigatron it's PUBG Mobile. So they,
it's the legacy game.
I mean, it's their biggest game. So is it a 1,000 point or what?
It's probably.
That's what they all, that's another 1,000 points. That's what they all want, 100%. And PUBG Mobile is so amazing to me because how global and international it is. Like the last several major tournaments, all from different countries and regions. You can.
It was the most watched game last year, no?
It was definitely up there. I think MLBB was ultimately the most watched.
I'm almost sure that it's PUBG Mobile.
And then it's maybe like airtime versus
Anyway, it's
peak
one
viewers.
of the exactly. But it's one of the biggest. It's crazy, and that's one of the things we don't see from the Western world, like how big the game can be. It's insane.
And that's the cool thing about PUBG Mobile. It's like we have Turkey is super strong, Southeast Asia is obviously completely strong as well, Brazil is strong, and then the last PMGO is a global tournament that we also qualified through. A Pakistani team ended up winning. So it's really,
Conclusion: we have no clue.
it's impossible to predict the winner. I think
So
the
it's a
team is
battle
looking
royale
good, but
versus
it's-
fighting and battle royale.
Yes, I think it's the same there. If we get points, let's be happy.
Most likely, prediction is 0 is a prediction that's not nice, and we believe in the guys. We could do points, but not easy. So we say 0 for now.
I think for the graphic and everything, we
secret
said
hopes.
0, and then maybe there's another priest in here.
Then we go to
Honor of
the
Kings.
biggest game in the world.
For us, like we noticed last year, is like we have probably the best Indonesian team, that's winning everything locally.
But
But every time that you face
Yeah.
a Chinese team,
Yes.
you get totally but
dismantled. But
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
to explain, it's like Chinese. It is the Chinese game. Everyone's playing in China. All the Chinese teams are miles above every other team in the world, but there are only 2 of them in the tournament.
There are luckily only 2 of them in the tournament. All Gamers is one of them though. So for the club championship, we expect that All Gamers will at least be top 2 in that tournament. Huge points for them.
are they super dominant? Because last
But
year all
they
gamers
won KPL last year.
Yeah, they won the Golden Road last
they
year.
won
They are
everything.
not this
Everything.
year. They struggle a bit more this year, but I mean, it will come down to both Chinese team will most likely meet in a grand final, going to be best of 7 or so. And
Yeah, because we can predict the thing. Like a Chinese team will go first in groups. They will be at the opposite side of the bracket and meet in finals. The goal then is to have a nice draw and avoid them in quarters.
which
Because-
hasn't happened last year to
Yes.
us. Last year was exactly that. We were eliminated in quarters because we played against a Chinese team.
So this game is a bit weird in that sense. It's very much reliant on the draw. Good thing is that they only invite 2 Chinese teams because otherwise we could not aim for a good result. It's just too different the level.
did they invite him from group stage or already qualified to quarter?
Good point, because last year they seeded them in the playoffs. This time they have to play in the group stage as well.
But
so there
it
is
will
a
be
chance.
a breeze for them.
I mean, who knows? Maybe we have
Okay,
some
okay.
upsets here and there. I mean, I would love to beat All Gamers out of nowhere, you know?
Yes, but okay, that's
but
not
now we
the
are
official
dreaming.
prediction
Now we are
because that's very
dreaming.
unlikely. Okay, so here it's really top. The goal is to be get out of groups, be in quarters, be top 8, and with a lucky draw in quarters, who knows, we can go top 4, but you cannot go above top 4 theoretically. Tekken,
Last year was a really good year because Jonding made like mix-up finals before EWC. Then at EWC went to semi-finals and lost to the decider games for top 3. We all know that. And then attended Evo and went in a final.
True.
So crazy year. And this year it seems to be harder for him. He's not super in shape. Same for Jonding. Is it the meta? Is it the players? What?
Eddie definitely got nerfed on the way. Same for King Ray Jr. as well. So they definitely struggle a little bit with the patches and the new season not being in their favor, let's say. I don't really want to use this as an excuse. I think Tekken overall became a bit more volatile. The names that we currently see in the top 8 are definitely more surprising than what we saw last year. But the good names still stand out. Like Arslan Esh, he is, as long as he's not playing in Saudi, he's apparently one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
If he plays in Saudi, he's apparently just one of the worst. It's really hard to predict as well. I think this is definitely a case where it could go both ways again, where Jianding goes on an insane run because he gets the support from Golden Hornets as well, and then ends up getting into big points. I could also see a world where Tekken goes home with 0 this year, simply by the current tournament result. Let's say it's 0 for now. If they qualify, I think 200 points is definitely what we want to have. But even that, I would not put my money on, actually.
2 weeks left. And we start to go in crazy big games for us. Rocket League.
Yeah, Rocket League. I think Rocket League go same as Valorant prediction. I think top 4 in my opinion. I think last year.
And that's the last international result we just got.
Exactly. I think we went to major finals in Boston, so we have also potential to peak. I think right now, like the only blocker that we have is in front of KC. I think also Falcons will be probably not a team to sleep on it because they didn't qualify.
Despite their struggle.
Exactly, they managed to not qualify from Paris, but I think they will be vexed and it's still like a really good team. So probably
And they
expect them.
invested to be top 1 in EWC.
Yeah, with Drali hiring. So I expect Falcons to show up and be stronger in this one. For me, like top 4, because when you have Zen, and Zen is probably, in my opinion, honest opinion, the more complete and best player in the world of all time, in my opinion. Not the god statue because of his palmarès, but in terms of able to do everything and his mechanical strengths, I think Zen is probably like the best forever. And I think probably if we have the right mentality, right mindset, I think top 4 is what we should aim. And yeah, and can go further, but I think
Especially at home.
top
you
4
can
is this
dream.
is what I am and what I want to play.
You're the Rocket League guy. It's fine. A weird one with chess. Why is it weird? Is because there is a fucked up situation, let's say, in the circuit. Usually, Esports World Cup manages to work with publisher to make sure there is no overlapping tournament. In chess, it's a very different world, and there are tournaments happening at the same time at EWC where our player Maxime has already commitments to those tournaments, so it's likely or it's possible that we don't even participate.
Yeah, I'm super close to Maxime and still trying to figure this out. We both agree that there is a world where he plays and prioritizes EWC, but we are still going through what this means legally speaking, because he has a, as you say, even contractual commitment to a different tournament. You can't just simply do both, so this is still what we are untangling. I hope that there's a way to have him at EWC, because that's ultimately also our target and goal. So we ultimately set.
And we love Maxime, want to see him in Paris.
Of course, in front of the French audience with probably Golden Hornets, it's also really amazing.
Yep, so let's see how that situation unfolds.
And the
so
most...
far now we say 0, because we are not even sure to participate, but we go to the last crazy week, and I suggest...
Can I jump in for a second though, because I have a hot take for chess.
Yes, okay.
So this will be a chat clip. Magnus Carlsen will not win the chess tournament.
Woo!
Period.
That is indeed a take. Sure, we've seen him struggling compared to his standards recently, but...
Then Hikaru is winning? Hikaru?
That's the issue.
And
the Falcons player is winning, and that means Falcons will win the EWC overall.
Because the Falcons got Ali Reza and Hikaru.
Yeah, the most stacked lineup.
Yeah, so my hot take is Magnus will not be winning. Hopefully he proves us wrong and we can still beat Liquid otherwise. But hey, if he doesn't win, then
probably good news.
That would be a good clip as well.
Then he took it personally.
Yeah, and if Magnus takes it personally, he might win. Anyway, we go to week 7. And I suggest we finish with CS. So
okay,
it will be the big firework.
Can I say how crazy week 7 is?
Yes.
That's the most important week.
Of course. That's why for us, for Vitality, hope will still be there no matter what, because we have the crazy finish week.
Yeah, it means that the EWC will not be decided up until the last week, because technically speaking, we could be getting 4,000 points in the last week, right? Like we will, of course. So let's go through the games one by one.
Trackmania, new addition in the EWC.
One of the games that have been, we'll say, like announced super late in the process, and we managed to sign one of the goats of the game with Pac. So our expectation started like a bit shaky, and finally managed to find his group and won DreamHack.
Won DreamHack, got second place at Red Bull Faster. I know it's a bit painful that we were not be able to signing a French player, or let's say also a French-speaking player. We can say that we tried to sign a French-speaking player.
That we shall not name.
Because of several reasons. But in hindsight, I'm so happy to have Pac on board. He's such a great guy. And now we put UK on top with Mezzi and Pac together. I hope he will put us on top in return. I think for me, top 3 is the minimum expectation I have for him. Challenge is big. I think Liquid has a good lineup. All Gamers has a good lineup. Falcons has Carl Jr. We have Pac. And these are exactly the names fighting for the club championship. So Trackmania could become one of the most crucial tournaments for the club championship.
And it's a really good game for French audience, because it used to be like a game promoted by French streamers doing their own competition. So I think French will be crazy about it. So it's really good to know that there will be a lot of followers and Trackmania enjoyers in the audience. So it will be in terms of atmosphere. So on discussing good tournaments, I think Fortnite also will be one of the biggest hype of this entire EWC, because we saw how crazy it was in Lyon last year with Blast, organizing those tournaments for the World Championship. I think we have a lot of clubs like Gentlemen or even Havoc right now that we acquired that bring a ton of hype, and also things like this. We had to make a hard choice internally, because we got Havoc, and when we got Havoc, our own duo with Sweezy, not Pixie, because Pixie was under contract with Havoc still, didn't qualify, so we have to submit it a duo, because even if we have like 4 players qualified, 2 duos, only one can score points for on behalf of Vitality. So I think ultimately we had some trust, and we let expert talks, and was the co-founder and owner of Avoc, told us that he believed that Pablo and Tino on this format are probably more consistent because the selling with Sweezy and Pixie is insane. Those guys are so cracked and so good, but Pablo and Tino have fit better this game mode that is all about fighting, all about taking some space. So we picked this lineup, and our expectation, same as Warzone, let's say, is probably around top 5 to make sure that first the game is at cost, and second that ultimately it score enough points. I think it's still conservative because Pablo and Tino shown that it was one of the best duo in the world super consistently. I think AD also hit the jackpot with this crazy other Danish duo because our duo is Danish. And I think they have probably one of the best team on paper as well. So good game and strong game for probably for AG, but for us we will be a contender. Top 5 is what we will probably aim, but we can go further and probably also reach top 4, top 3 if we are in a good day and if we have no contest in our spawns.
And this gives me a chance to shout out Aurora Gaming. We always talk about all gamers, Falcons, Liquid, and us in particular. Aurora really surprised me with how they put their EWC lineup together. They're not even an EWC partner club, so to say, right? So another game in Fortnite, they got the young kids in Europe that won the first qualifiers.
They hired Shark from Big with apparently a crazy buyout. So they also invested a lot in EWC to probably be a contender for the years to come.
And I think that if we have a strong lineup for them, a lot will be decided early on, and like Apex Legends and Dota in particular. But if they actually get good points, then Fortnite in particular could be very, very crucial for them as well, and they could definitely break into the top 5 of the club championship. So it will be interesting.
Yeah, and Fortnite will be insane as an event in Paris with all the crowd, so looking forward to that.
And all the co-streamers also on site, that's one of the beauty, because I think EWC will facilitate as well those co-streamers to be able to cast from the arena.
So we have 2 games left, one briefly
I think
on Crossfire.
Let's go with not HD version of Counter-Strike.
Yes, exactly. Let's go with the best FPS in the world, Crossfire.
Massive in China, by the way.
Massive in China, and Chinese teams definitely expected to be the favorites, and All Gamer yet again on the list because they won the title last year. They come back as title defenders.
What do we aim? A nice top 8, a nice 200
Correct.
points.
I think we have to be realistic. We joined minor region, team from Egypt, Craig guys. They dominate the region. They win pretty much every single game. Global stage, they are the typical underdog story, right?
Egypt will surprise the world.
That's the dream here.
But 200 points prediction, top 8.
Yeah, that's what I want to have for sure.
And then we go to the crown jewel, my friends, which is Counter-Strike, which will be an incredible event in Paris also, because 3 years after the Paris Major, that's
it's a nice anniversary.
Nothing happened in the meantime in
First
France.
event in France during the era period of these teams, but also this team has an history of being a bit, and it's harsh to say with those games because they are so unique and they are mutants, but to disappoint us a bit.
Oh, yeah.
At EWC.
We can say it.
First year was really tough to lose versus bad VP.
It was VP in quarters.
In quarter,
Yeah.
that didn't score big, and we won the first map and got reverse sweep, which was not really nice memory for us. And then last year we had some circumstances having like Ziwu being uber sick, and Mongols playing out of their mind in our semi, and then
the infamous third place decider that cost us 1 million.
And that I think I remember, like Zayu couldn't even watch his screens. So where are we right now after this half year and our successes? I think still believe that we are the best team in the world. I still believe that we have the best player in the world. But in same times, I think the disappointment of Cologne is so big that we release a lot of pressure and give them a kind of
La dalle.
It's probably payback time for them, and I think they want to win it. So if Apex, Zayu, helped by probably a really strong Maisie, Robs, Flamesy, wants to win it, they can win it. So,
and that's the goal.
I go for top 1.
Yeah, that's the prediction, the goal, and that's what we expect. We want to finish the because it will be the last game played in the whole competition. Finish with a bang.
Its own day as well, right? Like the final Sunday is only for Counter-Strike. Every single else is already finished by then, which means it's definitely going to be.
It can be an incredible story for us and for Paris, France in general. So yeah, prediction 1,000 points. And overall prediction between what was planned and what we predict today, I think between 4,000, 5,000 points. What do you?
Yeah,
believe?
it felt
Danny, you're the
like
mastermind.
correct. It felt like we got close to 5,000 points with our predictions right now, which definitely puts us up there in the fight against Liquid, all gamers. I think Falcons will have even more points. I think the question for Falcons becomes, as you mentioned, can they actually win a game title? Because it was so close for them last year as well. It was Overwatch out of nowhere that they actually ended up winning. But if we get into the high 4,000 points, I think our goal of 4th place will be secured. The question becomes, where's our ceiling? Can we get 3rd place? Can we get 2nd place? Which would be insane for the company's business as well, because then we can talk about sustainable profit from EWC as well. Winning EWC overall, I don't think it's possible. I said the same last year. We were sitting in week 6 and we actually saw it was possible, you know. So who knows? Anything can happen. That's the beauty of EWC as well. Like every win counts at the end of the day, and it's a Free Fire 3rd place, it's a Breeze 2nd place. It's these surprises that will actually count the most, because games like MLB and Counter-Strike, they can kind of only disappoint, right?
They need
because they either match the
fulfill their roles,
expectations or they disappoint. But it's the other stories that excite me so much. Like, who are the surprises on the way that all of the fans can be pretty proud of?
And who's winning your shirt?
And
That's
who's winning
the
my shirt?
question for you guys.
Like, if someone nails that and gets all the predictions right, then more than happy to give you my lovely shirt.
So, can we predict the potential top 3 of the overall club championship? Falcons first.
Falcon
Who is
first.
going second, AG or Liquid?
Maybe AG in the current trend. Okay, if we say we're top 4. Anyway,
Okay, so if you say that's top 4, so you have Falcons, AG,
Falcon, AG,
Liquid.
Liquid, and us. Let's say
I say Falcons, Vitality, AG.
I prefer
Second
that
place for.
by a wide margin. So, is it an official prediction? I don't know. That's the wish.
Oh yeah, true. I should have said other way around.
He had the trick. He's hiring he has some witchcraft shit. So yeah, can you explain? No,
It is.
Is
It
it legal?
has happened in sport
To
before.
some extent.
It has happened in sport before. I took a page out of baseball, which, by the way, props to Major League Baseball to also recognize Counter-Strike in their social media. There was a guy in Seattle that hired a witch from Etsy to help the Mariners go on an insane winning streak. So stupid me ended up buying a good spell from a witch from Etsy the day when MPL Indonesia playoff started, asking the witch to please help Bigatron. And they fucking won.
So it's a proof that the thing actually works, or that I'm surrounded by crazy, completely delusional guys. But whatever, let's see.
But why did we invested so much in League of Legends when I could have hired a witch from it?
Yeah, or a voodoo doll, or I don't know.
€5. I mean, it's obsession again. You know, like this movie that break all the record. It's we wish go witchcraft shop and something like this, like and crack, and I will make a wish, one time wish.
The results are a bit weird.
I want to win everything.
Yeah, okay.
So we now go there. Yeah, we now
Of
go.
course,
and
it's Obsession V2 actually.
There you
That's the
go.
prequel.
Yep.
Okay, I like your version, Danny.
Perfect.
I thought that you will say I like your shirt.
I said it many times, so I think you were good. And anyway, soon you won't have it anymore. So okay.
Anyway, guys, thank you very
guys.
much.
Hopefully, it was very clear. It was also perfectly accurate, obviously, as we'll see. And yeah.
Let's see if it aged correctly and well. And yeah, but thank you very much for the content, Danny.
And come, VIT15.
And
Yes.
the code VIT15 for discount. And also, like, don't forget to share your own calculation, mathematic method, everything that looks super rocket science. And I think we will be pleased to celebrate the winner. So thank you very much for this content.
Et vive la
Finger
France.
crossed for this summer, and I think you will be like us, really hooked, and be sure that it will be an exciting moment and a nice celebration with a lot of activation on seat, on the arena. So feel free to say hi to Danny, to say hi to the players, to cheer for them, because we will fight for it and to be
And every win counts.
exactly.